The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God would come, Jesus said in reply, "The coming of the kingdom of God cannot be observed, and no one will announce, 'Look, here it is,' or 'There it is.' For behold, the kingdom of God is among you." Then he said to his disciples, "The days will come when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. There will be those who will say to you, 'Look, there he is,' or 'Look, here he is.' Do not go off, do not run in pursuit. For just as lightning flashes and lights up the sky from one side to the other, so will the Son of Man be in his day. But first he must suffer greatly and be rejected by this generation." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Lord Jesus Christ.
Where is the kingdom of God? Can't we not just point it out? Can't we not just point to a single person or to a single event and just say, there it is, there is our perfect example of this kingdom of God? The Pharisees had a lot of trouble dealing with this idea of the kingdom of God because the Romans are still in Israel, or the Romans are still in Jerusalem. And today, we still have this problem of the kingdom of God when we see all of this suffering, when we see all of the evil in our world. Many people come to us and ask, where is this kingdom of God that you so preach if there is so much suffering in this world? How doesn't God just show us this kingdom outright? Why doesn't God just come down and tell us exactly where this kingdom of God is, or how this kingdom of God should look? And as I was racking my brain for 2 days thinking about what would be a great illustration of this quandary, I came up with this experience that I had about 12 years ago. I was teaching Taekwondo to some kids. I would teach white belts up to about black belts, but I would mostly be helping out with the white belts and so on. And the kids could be from any age, from about 5 to about 12. And every month, maybe once every 2 months, we would have an exam. And that exam would be in 3 parts. The first part of that exam was you would just do the moves. You would show in front of your instructors the punches, the kicks that you were taught for that belt. Second part of that exam was to do a formation, where you would go up and down in a form and show your techniques in this basic set of maneuvers. The third part was the breaking of a board. Now for black belts, that would be a much harder thing. You would have 2 boards that you would break, or it would be a cinder block, or it would even be a brick. But for the kids, it was a simple pine board. I would say simple, obviously, because, well, I've broken my fair share of boards doing this as well. But as I would hold the board for the kid, and he would try to break it, he would tap it, it wouldn't break. I would say, try again. He would try just a little harder, but it still wouldn't break. And as I was standing there holding the board, I was thinking to myself, what can I do to help this child break this board? I can't just have him step aside and say, well, I'm going to break this board for you. Break the board, here you go, that's it. All you got to do is repeat what I just did. That won't work. I can say, look, over there, there's a kid who's breaking his board just fine. That won't work either. I remember one time after time and again, this kid simply would not break this board. And after thinking about this experience, I learned that the only way that this kid was going to break this board was if I found some way to tap in him that courage and that faith that was necessary to break that board. Only he or she was capable of doing this. And I had to find some way to bring that out of him or her. Perhaps this is the mystery of suffering. St. Teresa of Avila said, "Suffering is a great favor. Remember that everything soon comes to an end, and take courage. Think of how our gain is eternal." In suffering comes gain. How many perfect days have we had where we say to ourselves, "Boy, I learned a lot that day"? Well, maybe we did. Maybe we learned that we were so blessed that day that we had such a great and awesome day. But then come some of our worst days. Some of maybe a set of worst days, a worst month, maybe a worst year. Days that are filled with anxiety, perhaps something that you did that you wish you hadn't done. How much have you learned from those experiences? How much have we learned from those experiences? When I mess up bad, I know I learn a lot from that. Especially just recently today, as I was talking to my I was talking to Troy, my campus director at WashU, I kept messing up names left and right. I referred to the fact that we were having a meeting with Bishop Carlson, and I said, "Oh yeah, this is Bishop Callahan." Or I would say, "Oh yeah, Father Greg," when I meant to say Father Gary. I learned my lesson quick, as Troy pointed out, just how silly and ridiculous I sounded when I said these names wrong. But how was I supposed to know my failure in that without at least exerting, without at least trying, without at least pushing forward? What about that one child, without knowing that this courage exists, can finally be taught that this courage does exist? For that one child that always breaks through the board, they may already have the courage they need, so they need something new. But for that one child that can't break through, how do we present to them that courage and faith that they need? How do we teach them to tap that grace and that power that they have bottled inside? And so how do we tap this kingdom of God that is within us? And how do we move others to share that kingdom of God that is within them? God has given us this instruction, and God has given us the means. Do we lack the will? I doubt that. Then why is it so hard to bring this kingdom of God so fully realized? But this is something that only we ourselves can answer. This is something between us and God. It's just like an issue of breaking the board is between the person and the board. God gives us the grace to punch through, and it's His goodness and its love that originates from God. Peace is not some buried treasure found on a beach, or in a single person, or in a government, or in nations. It is not for the grabbing. It is in all of us to find in ourselves and to share with others.